We have no recognition. I think the first thing we can do is go to the educational presentation. I think that's probably what a lot of the support here is for, or the public's here for. So I'll turn it over to Dan and Jennifer. Ms. Burns.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out. Tonight we're going to be talking about some proposals that we have for, I'm sure you know, changing around our bell schedule for the next school year. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm Dan Welch. I'm the principal here at the high school, and this is Jennifer Burns, our guidance director. Starting at the beginning of the year, we started to look at what opportunities we might have, might come about from looking at our current bell schedule. There were some, in my opinion, some inherent issues there that needed to be looked at. A big opportunity we wanted to look at was looking at a schedule that would allow us to overlap with our middle school colleagues. Part of the work we're doing in the schools around getting to proficiency-based diplomas, Common Core, technology, things like that, we're really trying to do more of a 7 through 12 initiative. We have several committees now that are put together of 7 through 12 teachers, and really trying to become more cohesive and collaborative. And I think, so we wanted to find a way also that we could find common spots, common times in which we could share some resources from the high school to go to the middle school and extend some STEM courses. We're hoping to have some robotics there next year for 7th and 8th graders, and some technology education courses, things like that. So that really was the impetus, if you will, for looking at the bell schedule. And to tell you the truth, as Jennifer and I, we spent a lot of time looking at various bell schedules. I think the proposal we have has a lot more benefits than just this. It allows for this. It allows for common pockets of time in which we can share resources, we can share people, but I also see a lot of other benefits as well. I won't stand up here and tell you that it's perfect by any stretch. I can also tell you that no schedule is perfect, and that's just the nature of it. So that was the opportunity we were looking at. So for those of you who don't know, we're proposing to go to what's called a 4x4. It's a semester-based system in which students take 4 classes one semester for elongated periods of time. Right now, classes are 52 minutes. They meet 3 out of every 4 days, and we're on a 4-day rotation. You know, the day's either a B, R, H, or S day. Okay. Lab periods, we have a double lab period once out of every 4 days of that rotation. So some issues I have around that, or had around that, is, you know, the schedule was very, very hectic with 4 days rotating. Students were focusing, or are focusing, on 6 or 7 classes at a time. Very, very busy, very arduous, I think, for some students. Not all, but for some students. And so what happens is you take a semester, you have the same 4 classes, they meet the same time every day for 75 to 80 minutes. Okay. At the semester, you take 4 new classes. You're never focusing on more than 4 classes at a time. So you have the chance to take 8 classes, 4 new classes at the semester, okay? So a semester class is worth 3 credits. You get the same amount of seat time as you do right now in a current class that we offer. So some things that we look at this is we think the longer class periods, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't always been a huge proponent of longer class periods. I think some things we've done in the high school over the last 5 years makes this much more manageable. It makes much more sense to us. We have a lot more STEM and science offerings. These courses are very, very conducive to a longer period. And when I say longer minutes, we're talking about 20 to 25 minutes. It's not what I would call a quantum leap. Technology, with our iPad integration, our iPad initiative, I feel that this could give students a lot more time to delve into topics, to use the iPads in a way that enhances their educational experience. And something that's called the flipped classroom model, and that's something we've been experimenting here through our own professional development as a staff. And what that is you may have the kids go home, and for their homework that night, they may watch a podcast of a teacher, they may look at what's called Khan Academy, they may look at some instructional materials, some introductory material. Then they come in that next day, and you spend a majority of the classroom working on things rather than getting the information, if you will. It's that flip model. So the homework kind of comes into the classroom more than outside of the classroom. And it's a more hands-on approach, which is something we definitely want to promote. I think maximizing the opportunities for student success, and you know, I'll give you an example of this. You know, I'm looking at this from not only the principal perspective, but also as a parent. I have a student here at BRHS who's got 3 years left, and I've got 2 more students that are going to be coming to this high school. And from both perspectives, I think this schedule maximizes the students and my own children's opportunities here. Specifically, I remember picking my daughter up after she got back from a basketball game at Mount Abram this last winter. And for those of you that have been to Mount Abram, I haven't, I didn't travel, it was a little too far. It's a long ride. And I think they got home just shy of midnight. She got in the car, she's dog tired, hadn't eaten, she goes, well, I gotta go home and do homework now. So she was up till about 2 a.m. doing homework because she had 6 classes the next day to get ready for. Now, granted, going to this isn't gonna eliminate that, but I really think that having students focus on 4 classes at a time maximizes their performance in the class, it maximizes the teacher's ability to integrate central concepts and themes into the courses. I think it is ideal. We will have a school-wide study hall. We'll no longer have separate study halls for students. Honestly, I think a school-wide study hall in which every teacher is available for support is much more beneficial than having 7th period study hall. You know, a lot of times kids say, well, I got study hall, but you know, teacher so-and-so is in a class and I can't see him, and I got sports after school, so I can't get help then, and I ride the Edgecombe bus, so I don't get here till 7:45. You know, this allows every kid in the school to have access to every teacher in the school. And that's going to be for about 50 to 55 minutes, about the same length of time that their study halls are now. And study halls for most kids are either 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 4 days, depending on their lab schedule and the rotation. This is every day. Eliminates the rotation format. Again, every class meets the same time every day. I think that's conducive to mentorships. We have a lot of students that do internships in the community. It is difficult sometimes for people out there to say, you know, okay, I'd love to have you, but when can you come? Well, if it's a B day, I can be there at 8:30. If it's an R day, I can be, and they're going, what do you mean a B day or an R day? I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know. So more conducive to that. Another thing I would say is that I think it allows certain students to take classes before they'd be able to in our current schedule. So an example of that is we have freshmen right now that are taking geometry and algebra 2. So next year as sophomores, they could conceivably take CP chemistry first semester, CP physics second semester. A lot of students don't get to CP physics till they're a senior right now. Now, granted, that would be a kid who was really into science, but that's just an example how they might do that as a sophomore to free up more space come junior, senior year. So those to me is what I see the benefits for this schedule. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. She's going to talk a little bit about the process and some other things we looked at so that you can see how we've come to this, this conclusion.
Right, so what I want to do now is I want to walk you through the process that we went through to come to the conclusion that the 4x4 was the best option for us to move to at the high school. And like Mr. Welch said, we really did choose this schedule because after reviewing all the options, we really felt that this one had the most benefits. And that overall, even beyond the impetus, the reason that we started looking at this, that this really would be a good thing for our school. So as we went through the process, we really looked at more than 4, but these are the kind of top 4 proposed schedules that we looked at. And we went through all of them and we considered the pros and the cons. We ran scenarios with all of them to see how our master schedule would work with all of these proposals. So one proposal that we looked at, I made up the names for these. One is called the hybrid 4 and 4. It had a combination of semester-long and year-long courses. I'll explain that more on the next slide. And then we had the hybrid 6 and 2, also had a combination of semester-long and year-long courses. We had the traditional 4x4, like Mr. Welch said, that's the one that we're planning to move forward with, or that we're proposing to move forward with. And then the last one was something, I made up the name of this one too, called the trimester flow. It had courses meeting for 2 out of the 3 trimesters. So with the hybrid 4 and 4, what that schedule would have looked like is, like you see up here on the left-hand side, you would have 4 big long blocks that were semester-long blocks, periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the right-hand side, what you're looking at there is that we would have been able to split those long blocks also into shorter blocks. So a student might come in first thing in the morning and they could go to class 1, the long block, or they could go to 2 classes, class 1A or class 1B. So a pro of that is that it allowed, it allowed for half semester long and half year long classes, which would have maybe resolved some of the issues that we were concerned about around whether or not a class met for all of them. However, when we looked more at it, we ran scenarios, we looked at what this would mean for our school, we came up with a lot of cons at the same time. One thing was that the year-long classes, really in terms of the time that you spent in the classroom, we felt that was really too short, and we got a lot of feedback from faculty about that as well. The year-long classes would have ended up meeting for 40 minutes or less. And one major problem with that too was that there were so many bell periods throughout the day with this kind of a model. So the kid that's in class 1A, they come to school, there's a bell to signal the beginning of the day. Then there's a bell period at the end of class 1A. That's interrupting the kids who are in class 1. You're also losing time to passing time when you do this. When you have 8 periods meeting in the day, you have to give kids time to get between classes. It was obviously kind of hectic when you're going through a student who has all year long classes and you're going through 8 classes a day. You're also having to prepare for 8 classes the next day if you're one of those students who has all of those. And then we talked to people who work with the course scheduling software that we use, because they had worked with schools that had done a hybrid format like this and non-hybrid formats. And we talked to them about something called request fulfillment. And when I say that, I mean students being able to get the courses that they ask to take. So students put in course requests. We looked at, are we able to fulfill those course requests? And when you move to a hybrid format like this, course request fulfillment is significantly decreased. We didn't see that as a good thing. We want to be able to meet what our students' needs are. If they're requesting a class, we want to be able to offer that class to them and fit that into their schedule. The hybrid 6 and 2, that had 6 semester-long classes. So first semester you had 3 semester-long classes. And then it had 2 year-long classes that kind of met in the middle of the day. So again, this was another compromise or another hybrid format. It had room for some semester-long and some year-long courses. Those semester-long courses were longer blocks, so that was something that we saw as a pro. We were able to elongate those blocks, and they met for about 80 minutes. However, when we ran through the scenarios and we looked at what classes would meet in what places, we found issues with this model as well. One of the biggest issues was, what do you choose to put in that year-long spot? So the idea behind having that year-long spot would be maybe for things like band or lower level math classes or foreign languages. But then we started looking at plugging those things in to see how a master schedule would look, and we found that to be really limiting. When you get to a kid who's at their senior year and they're taking all AP classes, maybe they don't want anything that should reasonably fit into those year-long blocks. So we didn't see that as a good thing either. The other issue, just like with the prior schedule, the year-long block would have been 40 minutes or maybe even shorter, so we saw that really as being too short of a class time. And again, because it was a hybrid type of model, request fulfillment would have been significantly decreased for our students as well. So this is the trimester flow. The best way I felt to represent this was just to actually put classes up there and show you what it would look like. Basically, it would have put us on a trimester format, and most major classes would have been broken up into 2 parts. So you would have had English 9 Part 1 and English 9 Part 2. The reason to do this, the problem it would have solved, is the fear of maybe going an entire semester or an entire year without having a certain course. So by doing it this way, that would have been a way maybe to alleviate that concern. And also, when you only have 5 class periods in a day, you have longer class periods. But again, when we sat down to look at this and see how it would look with our schedule, with our courses, with our teachers, it didn't work very well. Kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, trying to take classes that are broken up in halves and fitting them into trimesters didn't work so well. Also, if you look at this too, you notice that you're kind of back on a rotation type of format, which is what we were trying to get away from. That was one of our major considerations, because that is not conducive to overlap. And again, when we ran scenarios, we plugged classes in, we plugged teachers in, and we found that it did not work. With our size school, with the number of sections that we offer for courses, it just didn't work. So what we landed on was to try the traditional 4x4. So as Mr. Welch already explained, you have 4 classes first semester, a different set of 4 classes second semester. Now, one thing to know about this is that with AP courses, they're not only going to meet for 1 semester. And again, we turned that decision over to our AP teachers. We talked to them. We said, help us figure out what's best for AP courses. You guys have been doing this a long time. And what they said was that, if you only have the class first semester, then you've got this big long gap before the AP exam. If you only have it second semester, the AP exam actually comes in May. You haven't even completed the class yet by the time the AP exam would come in second semester. So the decision point there was to extend AP courses, have them pick up 2 blocks in your schedule. And what this traditional 4x4 did for us was, number one, it gave us those longer class periods. That was one of our big considerations when we started the process. It allowed students to only focus on 4 classes at once, so that they will be potentially more successful in those classes. And when we looked at other schools who had moved to this model, we asked them what kind of experiences they had. And other schools had seen an increase in student achievement after moving to this 4x4 model. For those students who might fail a class, if they fail a class first semester, they may be able to make it up second semester. That's really, really important for things like English, because we often find that if we double a student up on English classes, they don't do well in either one. So having the flexibility to give a kid an English class first semester, if they fail it, then give it to them second semester, is a really good thing for those students. Because it's not a hybrid format, it did have the highest level of course request fulfillment as well, which means we'd be able to give students the highest percentage of the course requests that they had. And then for AP courses, like I described earlier, they're going to meet with more frequency and longer duration. So they're going to meet every day, all year, for 80 minutes. And I see this as only a positive, in my opinion, because it gives you the chance to really master the material that you're learning and really do well on that when it comes time to take that AP exam. And that's ultimately what we want to see. We want to see our kids succeed and master the material. We don't necessarily want to put them in a position where they're not going to be able to master that material. So we saw that as a good thing. The con, when it comes to the AP courses, is that it will limit maybe the number of AP courses that you can take. Because if you're taking an AP class and it's now taking up 2 blocks in your schedule, it's limiting the electives that you can fit in there. When we looked at this, we looked at kids taking 2 AP classes, they would still have room for 4 electives in their schedule. Students taking 3 AP classes would still have room for 2 electives in their schedule. The other con that we saw was that there were no year-long classes for things like band, foreign language, lower level math. So when we sat down, we looked at those cons and we said, if we want to move forward with this, we've got to troubleshoot these issues. We've got to figure something out. So one thing that we looked at was with the foreign language. We decided to set up foreign language in a way such that years 1 and 2 would meet spring to fall. So freshmen coming in would take their first year of a foreign language in the spring, and then their second year of a foreign language that next fall, so they didn't have that gap in foreign language. We've been looking at all different kinds of compromises and options and things that we can do for band. Where we stand right now, what we're looking at for band right now, is having it meet during that school-wide study hall time, 2 days 1 week, 3 days the next week in an alternating format. And when we sat down and looked at the times for that, that seemed very similar to the way that band would meet on the old kind of blue gold days, the AD system. We also saw some of the issues that we see maybe around the 4x4 schedule. We saw community be solved by having that school-wide study hall time as a time for students to have access to all teachers, go find the teacher, get questions answered for the class that they're in, things like that. And then if a student wasn't able for some reason to fit in all the AP courses that they wanted, we have a lot of alternatives to that as well. Students can do independent studies. We've had a lot of students actually do something called AP for All, which is free AP courses for students in Maine who want to take an AP course that isn't offered at their school. So we've had students sign up for that. They do mostly take it online through distance learning, but they also have a mentor here at the school that walks them through the course as well. So we have students do that. We have them do other online distance learning courses. They can take college level courses. We have a lot of our juniors and seniors opt to take courses at Central Maine, Southern Maine Community College, or University of Maine at Orono. So we saw all of those things as options or ways to troubleshoot some of the issues that we saw in the 4x4. Because we know there are some issues there that we needed to address.
I would just say too, I do know that AP courses as opposed to elective courses is a concern. And some students are concerned about if they take 3 or so AP courses, how does that limit the amount of electives they have or can have access to? And I'll be honest with you folks, no matter what schedule we have, we're going to run into that. It would be, even if we kept the same schedule we have right now, it would be an anomaly if you could sign up for every AP course you want, an upper level language, an upper level science. That happens in a school of 220 students because we have to offer what's called singletons. You know, we can only offer 1 section of Spanish 3 and 1 section of CP Physics, or just for example. So, you know, I know that's a concern. That's going to be a concern and an issue no matter what schedule we run. And, you know, so that's why, you know, we promote things like AP for All. We have a lot of students who do independent studies and things like that. We try to be as flexible as we can to get course requests in. So I just wanted to bring that up.
And folks, if any of you here for the public participation regarding this, feel free to ask Ms. Burns or Mr. Welch any questions regarding this.
I have one question. How do you come up with this schedules? I mean, I know the kids just write down what they want to take, but how do you plug in what they end up with?
So depends on the year, honestly. Usually what we do is we do what's called a build through our software program, and that's the most efficient way to do it. We put in all the course requests, and then it does a build putting the classes where we'll have the least effect on course requests. So the computer might come back and say, hey, with this model we can meet 82% of what you want, or if you move this to this, you can get 93%. And then what Jennifer does, Mrs. Burns does, is she looks at those kids who didn't get every request they got and sits down with them and tries to find compromises and things like that. So it starts off with a computer-generated program, and then she honestly does the the lion's share of the work as far as sitting down and trying to find those compromises for what kids who don't find exactly what they need. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right.
So like you talked about the first and second year, but like what about those of us who are like juniors and seniors and this is being applied now and like we don't have our credits? Like with what I'm taking, I don't even have the like option to take my language because of my AP classes. It's not like a scheduling issue like if it was this year, it's like I don't even have the chance to take it.
Well, I think you'd have I think students have the chance. I mean, honestly, there are times when students do need to make choices and look at things if they can't fit into the school day at independent studies. We have students now that have to do that have to take an upper level Spanish or something like that through independent study.
I just have a few concerns that some students have presented to me. I said I'd mention them for them. But we're all a little worried about taking a class like English or math our first semester, and then if we go off to college or we take our SATs in May and college in September or August, we'll have gone without those necessary classes for quite some time. And then also if we take a language, if we're taking, I don't know how it works for like languages 3 and 4, but we're a little worried about not having a lot of time or having a big gap between the languages we take and forgetting some of the stuff we learned. And I know the people in band are a little worried about giving up study hall time. It's just hard when we're going to be having 8, or if we have 4 classes, even just keeping up with homework and stuff. If we are coming home late from games, study hall's a good time to get a lot of that stuff done. And we're also worried about when people go on trips like the GAP program. It's a German program that people go on and miss a couple weeks of school. If we miss that and it's all the same classes, we're going to be missing a lot of those 4 subjects instead of spreading it out evenly amongst the subjects. So we're considering the blue and gold days. We're just wondering if there are any specific concerns you guys had with those.
Okay, I'll try to go through all of those
Sorry.
as best I can. So what I did is around SAT. So I think one of the concerns here was around SAT. So I actually pulled 5 schools in the state that currently run the 4x4, and I looked at their 3-year average for SAT results. And of the 5, 2 of those schools had higher SATs than we did. 1 had a very similar, and 2 had lower. So I don't know that there's a strong correlation between this schedule and SAT scores. We do offer SAT prep every spring free of charge to all of our kids. So I think, I still feel strongly that you'll be prepared for the SAT. Study hall piece, that absolutely it's not optimal. I think it's a really good compromise though. If you think about it, 2 or 3 times a week is not far off from what kids have now for study halls, especially if you're taking CP, chemistry, and you've got a full schedule and you only get study hall those 2 days out of the rotation. You're still not getting a study hall all the time. And you know what, if a kid is doing an independent study or something like that and maybe needs a period where they're not booked the whole time because they're taking band and this and that, I think kids would tell you we're pretty flexible about working with them to try to help them out. Yeah, program. Okay, so absolutely, that is a long period of time. Again, I would contest 2 things. Is I might try to, if you knew you were going to do that, as you will do in advance, maybe schedule your semester to be courses that maybe are a little more conducive to your learning style, A, and B, instead of having 6 or 7 classes to make up and keep up with while you're in Germany, you'd only have 4. I know my daughter went over to Germany, and it is a lot of work when you take off from school for 2 weeks, no doubt.
Dan, I have a question. Actually, I would just, to Sean, was it 4 years ago or 3 years ago that we switched, that we did have periods, were they the 70-minute periods?
When I first started teaching here, I think that first year it was about 77 minutes, and then we whittled it down a little bit. It was on an A and B kind of rotating schedule. So I think there's been experience with the longer periods.
Right.
That's the issue.
That's what I was wondering, because it's not the first time the district has gone through this. I think we've done it 2 or 3 times. But so your experience teaching, how did it affect the kids? And it's probably some of her answers
Well, you know, I had the advantage as a science teacher. I mean, I loved it. You know, having extended periods every time, I think was, you know, I'd take that any day as a science teacher. I think I'd say by and large, you know, some staff had probably shifted because of those longer periods. I think pedagogically they might have been good shifts. You know, giving kids time to practice, time to get feedback in class as opposed to outside of class, I think is probably a good shift. So, but I do think, you know, I think some of the questions here about language or band, you know, those are difficult ones to sort of work out. I have taught in this 4x4 semester at Wiscasset, and I think it's probably going to be hard for students to realize, and teachers maybe who are a little concerned, but the tension, the craziness of, you know, going through 6-7 periods a day, that alone has a positive impact on everybody. You know, there are shifts that have to happen maybe instructionally for that 80 minutes, but the fact that you have just 4 periods a day changes that dynamic. The schools that I were in that did those, they felt very different, and you know, that was a positive.
Good, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things was she had asked about the blue gold switch off here. But I also wanted to find out how is this going to impact, if it does, the VOTEC schedule kids?
So we did look at that very, very carefully. And the good thing about the BRCTC schedule and ours is that that's all about the Bell schedule. That's all about when things meet during the day. It has less to do with what type of schedule we go to, whether it's the 4x4 or the other type. So when we were considering making sure it fit with the VOC schedule, we just made sure that the Bell periods matched up, and we have done that. So it matches up just right, such that 2 periods meet in the morning, 2 periods meet in the afternoon. The VOC bus comes right in the middle of that time, so they'll get what they need.
And what I would say about the AB schedule is I will tell you that that's, out of any option we've looked at, my least favorite, for several reasons. Is when we were doing the AB, a lot of students had a study hall every day. If you think about that study hall accounted for 25% of their academic programming. I don't think that's a good situation. Students are still juggling 7 to 8 classes, which again, I think is very, very difficult. If a class got canceled, say you had it that week where it was only Tuesday and Thursday it met, if we had an assembly or if we had a snow day, you only saw the kids once that week. So those were my big concerns with the AB. Yeah.
I've heard around the school kids saying that they're not going to be taking AP classes because of this new schedule. Isn't that like a concern at all? That this is discouraging kids from taking AP classes?
I guess I would say, I don't know why it would discourage them. If it does, I'd love to sit down and talk with them. So I can, yeah?
So I can tell you one of the concerns is that if they do take, so for instance, she had in her mind she was going to take 3 AP classes. So if she takes 3 AP classes, it keeps getting thrown out that, well, she's probably going to have to do an independent study in order to get a 4th year of a language, which a majority of the schools that she looks at require 4 years of a language. She's not going to be able to do that. And the whole thought of independent study, if you are indeed taking 3 AP classes, is a lot. She did it last year. It was horrific. So I think there's I know this affects most of the kids that want to take a lot of AP classes, and I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea to encourage a kid to not take an AP class so that they can get in and don't take offense to this, but a health class or a PE class so that they can graduate, which is going to happen. There's kids that are going to have to make that decision.
So what I would say to that, Sarah, is, so if you think about this, so Hannah did an independent study last year. It was really tough. She had 7 classes last year. She was focusing on doing that independent study. If she took 3 AP classes and then 2 other ones, she'd actually have 5 classes to focus on for the entire school year.
So
I'm just
now
saying
if
that,
it's 85-minute class, or 80-minute
and I'd be honest
classes.
with you right now, if we kept the same exact schedule we have right now, there's a very good chance that she wouldn't hit all 3 AP classes, 4th year language, and every other science elective. That's just the nature of our schedule. It's very unlikely that would happen. You know, we can't guarantee that anytime.
So, with the AP teachers, does anyone talk to them about if indeed you're doing an 80-minute class, is that going to affect homework? I mean, does that mean less homework if you're in an 80-minute class because you have that much longer? Or does that mean you still get, you know, has anybody looked into that?
Well, I would certainly think, I mean, you've got double the time, but I mean, I certainly can't, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, yes, there's going to be less homework in AP English. I know Mr. Gorey's going to try to prepare them as the best to his ability to be ready for that exam.
I just think one of the pros to having the blue and gold days, well, there are a couple, but we wouldn't really have to switch from the 4x4 that much. We could keep the same bell scheduling and the same all-school study hall. We're just hoping to have, instead of semester, day and day. But with the blue and gold days, we could just have AP classes take up one of your class periods. And even though it is 8 classes year-round, it's still only 4 classes a night, so that still does cut down on a lot of homework that we have this year with 6 classes a day that still.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Again, I would say too, though, that most classes aren't determined on, say, you know, just the nightly homework. You have long-standing assignments that you're doing. You have DBQs in your AP class. You have, you know, you're doing, you know, research projects, things like that. So, you know, I think it's more than just that nightly homework, I think. And again, having the 4 periods to focus on, I think, is a much better situation. Andrew?
I might have said this before I got here, sorry. How long have you had the current bell schedule that you're using this year?
4 years.
If you wanted the longer class periods, why did we switch to this one in the first place?
I didn't like the AB schedule. I really didn't, and we saw a lot of issues with the AB. When we looked at different options, frankly, I didn't really know of a lot of schools that were doing the 4x4. I'd never even heard of it. This is what we came up with. We didn't have we didn't have as rich a technology program as we do now. We were working off laptop cards and some one computer lab. You know, I think, again, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I think we're much better equipped now to handle and to make better use of 80-minute periods than we were 4 or 5 years ago.
So I talked to a language teacher, and even though we're having more time in the week for homework and going over the homework and new stuff in the same day, we're going to have to cover twice the workload in 1 week. So for example, if we're running through 1 chapter in a week, we're going to have to run through 2 because of the semester thing.
You know, I think honestly, as we look at the way education's evolving, it's more about quality than quantity, and I hope that that's not the case, because to me, you know, a lot of courses are about skill building, teaching you how to become analytic thinkers, teaching students how to work collaboratively, work independently, not memorizing verbs and conjugations. So I don't really ascribe to that theory. You know, I mean, to me, it's not how many vocabulary words can I get you to understand, or memorize. It's, you know, how well can I get you to find the answers to things, to converse with people, things like that.
So I know there's no perfect schedule, but with the blue gold, it would give the AP students the whole year to do their classes, plus it will give them, at this point, with 3 AP classes, they're gonna have 2 electives. That's not enough time to get the stuff done. There's a couple alternatives. I mean, with the blue gold, they'll be able to cover those classes all year. But also, what if you took like the first block or the first 2 blocks and cut them in half? I know you don't like the big bell thing, but it's not, you'll find that it's not going to be an interference. I went to a high school that had 15, they called them mods. And, you know, most classes were 2 mods, and you'd hear that bell in the middle. You just got used to it and you ignored it. It wasn't an interruption or an interference.
I think, just from talking with a lot of our teachers, so you would be suggesting cutting a block in half and having it meet every day?
Right.
By the time you get passing time in, so if you take an 80-minute period and you have passing, you get the kids in, you sit down, so you're really talking about 35 minutes every day. you know, I'm not an AP teacher, but I really don't know that in 35 minutes you can delve into a topic, you know, in depth enough, really, especially with the amount of, you know, for an AP course.
Yeah,
Uh,
but you could extend that one block a little bit longer by 10 minutes or something, just in order to, so the kids that do, say if
That
they
would only be
did.
for 2 of the AP classes.
Right, but it's better than only having 2 blocks. They're now gonna have 4 blocks where they can do alternatives.
Again, so then we'd have to elongate 2 of the big blocks we have, and then those
No.
other 2, maybe I'm not catching it, I'm sorry.
So if you take the first block
Yep.
and make it a little bit longer
Mhm.
and allow AP classes in that one block. And then they can take another AP class that might be the 80 minutes or whatever, but it seems like the students that are doing the AP classes have common interests and they're doing common work and common classes. So, I mean, if you could just take the one block, cut it in half, make it a little bit longer, let them get those 2 classes in there. And then they have, for the second block, they could take another AP class if they wanted to, but then they'd also be able to have 4 alternatives, electives for, you know. Right now, they have 2 and they can't get health and gym and language and band and everything else in there.
You know, again, I think we just have to agree to disagree. I don't personally think that would be an ideal situation. You know, what 2 AP classes would I put in those 2 slots as opposed to the other ones? And I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that would be the best situation, but just my opinion.
Okay, then blue and gold, so that the AP students can get 8 classes, just like the rest of the students. Every student is gonna have the opportunity to have 8 classes except for the AP students.
I don't think the blue and gold system is the best system to have. I don't know either that, I mean, we have a lot of students in the school outside of ones that want to take 3 or 4 AP classes. You know, there's about 7 in the school right now that take 3 AP classes. I think this schedule still gives plenty of opportunity for advanced placement courses. Might not be the driving factor behind it, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here for AP classes.
I know there's not the whole school gathered here right now, but I just went around and I asked a lot of people how they felt about semester classes. I got a lot of signatures, actually 99 people who are worried about the semester classes. I asked 15 people said that they wouldn't mind semester classes, but 99 said that they had concerns with it, and not all 99 of these students are AP students, so I think there are more than just the concerns with the AP classes. But I don't know if anyone wants to take a look at this to make sure it's authentic. It's up for grabs.
We trust.
Yeah, nobody was going to question your authenticity.
I crossed out a couple names that were signed twice, but I think that was
And I really want to commend you guys, all the students who are here. I have to say I'm really, really impressed. I'm really impressed with you guys being here, with you guys taking the time to make something like a petition and really make use of those civil rights that you're learning about in history class. I'm really impressed to see you guys here, and I'm really glad to see you guys be a part of this process. I just wanted to commend you all for that.
Dan?
Yeah, I did. It's curious to me that 3 years ago when we switched from the blue gold days, I remember I thought the biggest con was that the classes were too long, and now that's all of a sudden a pro. So I just don't understand what's changed, what's going to change to make sure that does become a pro. Because I know that our other kids used to say that the teachers were always complaining that the classes were too long and they couldn't fill the class, and ended up getting unruly towards the end of the class and stuff. So I don't know if there's different teachers now or what.
Well, several things is the length of period, in my opinion, is not conducive for an AB schedule we've been talking about because of a lot of fragmentation. You don't have that consistency where you're only meeting twice a week with those classes for 80 minutes, you know. In this schedule, you meet every single day, so you have a lot more continuity.
I think that it's going to make it just tougher to fill 80 minutes every day as opposed to 70 minutes every 2 days.
I don't look at it as filling, you know what I mean? I don't look at it as like, hey, we gotta fill the time. You know, I look at it as, hey, we got a
Making
lot of
use
work to
it,
do.
Okay, it seems like it would be tougher to make use of 80 minutes when you couldn't make use of 70 minutes every other day.
I don't have concerns about that.
So what's changed to alleviate the concern?
Well, so when I started the presentation, I said, you know, we have a lot more technology integrated into the classrooms now. I think we'll make use of that.
Are you making sure they make use of that? How are they doing that? Are the teachers already working on a program for 80-minute long days? They're going to have to rewrite. I mean, from what we've looked at, looking at 4x4s, I mean, it really only works as if they rewrite their whole curriculum and how they approach the classroom.
Most of the schools say you need a year of preparation, workshops with the teachers, because it is putting new wine in old wineskins. That it is a new program, and that you can't go with the same old lectures. It's conducive to science and labs, but for languages it's not. The retention dies off after a certain amount of time, and mathematics. So I mean, there is, you know, a reason why they actually have to be trained to teach differently. And so a lot of these programs say you need a year to set up new programs and to actually practice them, integrate them into a regular schedule before you jump into this. Because, I mean, a lot of teachers have been here with the same programs, and for them to have to change it to keep the interest from, you know, 40 minutes to 80 minutes is tough. It's gonna be difficult to keep teens' attention.
Well,
And the technologies are great, but, I mean, have they been trained? I mean, is a summer enough to have them write up new programs?
I don't think we're going to need to write new programs at all. We've been doing curriculum mapping for the last year and a half, last year actually, with our teachers, and it's not about filling time, and it's not about the length of time. It's what happens with the time. It's what you do with the time. So if you look at how the brain learns, we learn first best. So in a classroom, we know that if we apply new knowledge to students, that's when the brain is most ready to learn that information. Then we learn next best, is that's actually when you take that knowledge and you're given time to manipulate it, to work with others, to use it on your own, but to actually apply that knowledge that you've just learned. So you look at 20 minutes in that, let's teach them, let's give them new knowledge, let's give our lesson. A 20-minute lecture is probably a lot more successful than a 40-minute lecture because of how our brain can only stay attention for a certain amount of time. And so if someone's prone to doing some lecturing, 20 minutes is going to be much more attentive for the students than a 40-minute lecture.
Right.
So you take the 20 minutes, first 20 minutes of the class period, then you have the kids actually manipulate it, work with that knowledge, then you actually go back and you have the teachers do feedback, look what they've done, and then you'll get reteaching. So if you break it into 20-minute classroom segments, it's really going to be very conducive to the retention of knowledge. This may be a shift for some people, and we'll be there to assist them, but I feel our teachers are very, very savvy and very gifted for providing really good instructional strategies. It will be a change, and change is hard for everyone. Having been a former foreign language teacher, I would love to have had 80-minute periods, to have that ability to take those 4 chunks and to really provide an opportunity for language acquisition, for vocabulary acquisition, for speech, for communication, and actually having that opportunity to take, because we also know that the brain, practice makes permanent. So if you continue to practice a concept again and again and again, that becomes learned knowledge. So if you can actually get a student to understand, to realize that a student doesn't understand a concept, you have another opportunity to reteach it or to manipulate that knowledge and to get to that student before they continue to practice that concept. It is going to be a change. We are going to have to make adjustments. We will provide professional development if we have to during our early release on Wednesdays. But I think this is the right way to go for our kids. There are glitches in every schedule. We've never had a schedule that meets everyone's needs. We will provide any opportunity we can to help our kids meet those needs. But right now, if you're looking at it, our district as a whole and trying to prepare kids for the 21st century skills, this seems to be a place that will help us do that.
I don't mean to sound disrespectful, that sounds ideal, but I do know in the Blue Gold days when we had children in those, that they said the last 15 minutes of the class went off subject, went to personal, conversation. So I'm a little concerned that that might happen
And I'm
again.
concerned that did happen, and I hope that I get a phone call if that does happen.
Okay.
I was gonna say, if you get that feedback next year, please don't ever hesitate to call me, and that's my job.
Okay.
Absolutely, and I really mean that. Please do. Andrew?
I only have one other question, I'll stop. When you're talking about independent studies, if you feel that that's going to be necessary for some of the AP students or whatever to get in what they need, is the school willing to, is the school and the staff willing to make an independent study something that's done, say a kid needs Spanish 3. Is the school willing to make the commitment and the staff that the Spanish teacher will work with the student so that that student's learning the Spanish 3 curriculum that's being offered through the school, and so they have support? Or is it just going to be, if you need Spanish 3, here's a computer class, you go take it? Because that my biggest concern, if the school's willing to make that commitment to where if a kid needs to work on their own, without class time, but can work something out with a teacher that 3 days a week during study hall, you come in here and I'll put, we'll work through our Spanish 3 program with you if you're willing. Because I just know from previous experience, not my own, my daughters, that to take a computer, whatever, independent study course, the effectiveness I just don't think's there. I think they're going through it to get it done, and what's the point? So are you guys willing to try and put something together so that kids that need independent studies to fulfill some of the stuff can do it through the school and through the faculty here with support, and not just have to venture out on their own to try and get it done, you know what I mean?
So what I would say is, we have a lot of kids now that are working with teachers that do independent study. I think Latin, we have several students that do independent study with Latin, upper level Latin, because they couldn't fit in. I go by the classroom quite frequently, and I see the student in there with the Latin teacher. Maybe not every day, but
Right.
pretty frequently. Some classes online are conducive. I would not necessarily say that a language course is a great fit for an online class. So I think it depends on the class. We really try to be as flexible as possible. Our teachers really try to give as much of their time as they can. They're very good about that. I'm certainly willing to give up time that I have allotted for kids to do that and to be flexible with kids.
So that, you think that would be an option then for
Yes.
kids that have to do?
Yes.
Hi, I have 3 things. Okay, so you just said, you see them in the classroom and then independent study, but if they're already having 4 classes a day, when is that independent study going to be?
So, I guess what I would say is if I had a kid that needed to do an independent study and needed a free block, again, things are not necessarily set in stone when I say that. So some kid says, hey, I'm taking 3 AP classes, I'm taking band, I'm taking independent study. Can I have a block to do my independent study? Sure, we have kids that do that now. We have kids that do online classes that's a period in the day they're doing their online class.
They're only taking an independent study because they ran out of blocks. So when...
Well, but the teacher may not be available every period when they're not.
Okay, my 2 other things. How is the schedule looking on Wednesdays? What's the difference? Just shorter periods? Okay. And then you mentioned AP for All earlier. I think it's a really great program that people can take other things that we don't offer. But I do know someone that's doing it this year, and they said they do not, they're not taking the test. They do not feel prepared enough. They just don't feel like they got the same experience as if they had actually taken the class in a classroom setting. That might just be the person, but...
I can't comment on that class. I'm not familiar with that. I do know a lot of students are successful. Not students that take an AP class here with our teachers aren't always successful. They're rigorous courses. We have students that don't pass AP courses sometimes. That happens regardless.
Dan, I did have a question. This isn't regarding the AP classes. It's kind of bigger than the whole program. And by the junior and senior year, the senior year, a kid that doesn't have the AP classes, but I'm thinking of a mentoring program for kids that, by the time they're senior year, the second semester of the senior year, they're almost there. they're here because they have to be. You know, I'll be honest with you, a lot of those kids are. But if there's mentoring programs, do you have mentoring programs set up so that these kids, okay, no, I'm not gonna go off to college, I don't know what I wanna do, but yeah, I'd like to do this. I'd like to be an electrician, I'd like to be a plumber. Is there connections to the community with these businesses so these guys can say, okay, I'm gonna work for, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day with some of these, craftsmen and people in the area.
We have kids come to the shop.
Yeah, I mean, I had a student today that looked at me and said, you know what, I'm gonna take senior English first semester, and then I wanna be an electrician, I'd like to work with an electrician half the day next year, my senior year. Great, no problem, we can make that work. We have students do this all the time. Eileen and I met with, this fall, 12 to 13 area constituents that we hadn't traditionally had internships with, talking about trying to promote getting more internships along the peninsula. We have kids in businesses all over right now. So I think this is much more conducive to getting kids out.
I just wanted to say a couple of the pros you had with this schedule was that one, the work study would be a lot easier to be able to say I can come these days at this time. But I can understand why this schedule is a little hectic, saying like B day or R day. But I do think that even though AB classes might not be your favorite or anything, but I do think it would be easier to be able to say I'll come every other day, and they can understand that. That's easy to understand. And besides weekends, just say I can come every other day. And there's another one, but I forget.
What is the big concern with the schedule we have now?
Well,
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, well, we were trying to create opportunities to do more collaborative work with the middle school, extend our STEM courses into the middle school, cut down on the franticness, if you will, of the day here of having the rotations, things like that.
Is the middle school having 80-minute long classes?
No.
No, but I think they've increased their instructional
yeah.
time.
Yes, they have.
So how long are their classes?
It'll be 52 minutes.
So how
Not
does those
necessarily
line
for
up?
specials, but
How do those line up?
We haven't figured out the details, except we know there'll be a block of time where staff can be shared from building to building. And there'll be sign-ups from specials, but those have not been narrowed down yet.
well, and one of the things that I don't know that people are taking into consideration is that that the incoming freshmen, they're going to be required to graduate with a standards-based diploma, but that's not just on the high school. It comes down to you have to start providing those types of courses for kids in middle school. Actually, it goes down from middle school, but that's where we're starting. So.
Can you do a 5x5?
Honestly, Andrew, I'd love to do a 5x5, but there's just not enough. You would not get enough time. If you looked at the overall time you're in a class, it would be really
How many periods are there a day now?
6. But they rotate, and so there's total. So you'll get 6 out of the 8, and then so you drop a 2. You drop 2 every day.
Go ahead, Rod.
So I just want to understand the structure of the day. So it's 4 periods, right? That's 4 periods. And there's a study hall, a school-wide study hall.
Yes.
Within that every day, there's a school-wide study hall. So then does that make it 5 periods or no?
That's not a full period. It's about 50 minutes.
Okay.
It's about 50 minutes. There's also a locker break time for the kids. Is about 10 minutes after the first block, so kids can get something to eat and go to the restroom and change books out. And then there is still that everyday study hall.
So would everyone have lunch together?
No, we'll split the lunches.
When is the study hall? Like between what periods?
I think is that
2 and 3. It's before lunch.
So everybody has the study hall at the same exact time. Are all of the teachers going to be available during that time? So if a kid does do an independent study during that time, they would have access to that
Every day.
teacher.
That was my question was, okay, so if you turn, is it possible to turn that study hall into your independent study? Is that sort of that alternative? And so for like Andrew's example, it's if I'm taking that other foreign language, that next year in foreign language, you could plug it in there you may not get all your work done. It wouldn't be an 80-minute AP course, but you could make a good start at it each day in that block. If you're willing to sacrifice that and do your homework and not use it for homework, you do your homework some other point, and then you would get the access to the teacher because everyone's available at that time every day.
And also, the nature of an independent study usually is not an everyday contact. I mean, it's you get an assignment, you do some work, then you touch base every couple of days. So, I mean, I think that would be the more likely scenario. Hey, you know, Mrs. Clark, if I'm doing Spanish with you, Tuesdays and Thursdays, can I come in to do my independent study and touch base with you? That's usually the more, you know, traditional model of an independent study.
Yep.
Usually kids that are taking independent studies are pretty good students and they can handle that.
This is just an observation and suggestion for the independent study portion. Where we found it was difficult was she signed up and did an independent study, but it was not at all, but it was not what Senior Clark was teaching. So
It was the online one, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when she came in and started getting the help, at that point, you know, she was doing triple the work because
Right.
she'd done some work and it wasn't
Mhm.
going to prepare her to come in this year and take Spanish 2. And so she started Spanish 2 behind trying to catch up. So I think if a lot of kids are going to end up doing independent studies, they have to have access to those teachers at the beginning of the year so that the teacher can say, okay, this is my curriculum, this is where I'm going, this is where you need to be for Spanish 4, so that they know that the independent study is getting them there, so that they're not.
And didn't the independent study only count for half?
It did only count for half, so that's a good question. I had that question. Do all independent studies not count for a full credit, or how does that?
No, when you sign up for a BYU course, it's online. That's what they articulate as a half a credit. It depends. If you want a year long and you want to do the work for a year-long credit, then you get the year-long credit. You know, I don't think there was any
So you
illusion
have
about
that
that when you
option,
sign up
the
for it.
option of doing
Yeah.
a half or full. And
Sure.
But that's what I'm saying. If somebody wants to do an independent study, do they have to go find one and then work through it and just use the teacher as an aid, or can they?
No.
Will the school provide? Can they do the same thing that?
We do that now in plenty of our courses.
I think we're really belittling the issue of the AP problem. I mean, it's huge. It's kind of, every AP class is going to take up 2 class periods. And that's why all these other problems of forming all these independent studies is just trying to get a balanced curriculum as opposed to 3 classes and 2 electives. You know, it's not a balanced 8-class school year. It's really like silly for all of us to try to figure out how to get independent studies in because of this new curriculum schedule.
You know, I would say, again, you know, if you look at this as a 4-year progression, students for the first 2 years before they're even eligible to take an AP course are going to have a very large variety of opportunities. And then if you're a student that wants to take AP courses, you're going to have, again, I look at it quality over quantity. I mean, you're going to have, you know, to me, looking at a student's transcript, if I see 3 AP courses and you've got 4s and 5s on your exam, as opposed to 6 AP courses and you've got 2s and 3s, you know, again, it's quality over quantity, I think. That's my opinion.